everybody. I hope that you are well and also hope that you are having a good day so far. Today we'll be doing our grade 7 English lesson on adverbs. And before we start, we're going to log on to aplusstudents.ca. Once we've logged on to aplusstudents.ca with our username as well as our password, then we're going to select the subject of language arts, grade 7, and then we're going to scroll down up until we get to our chapter of adverbs. Right? And we are now going to figure out or find out what does adverbs mean. All right. So our chapter is adverbs. Our subject is English language arts, grade 7. And the lessons that we are going to be focusing on under the chapter of adverbs, right, is to identify adverbs, and it is to form and use comparative as well as superlative adverbs. And we're going to figure out what is the difference between comparative as well as superlative adverbs. All right. All right. So when it comes to adverbs, right? An adverb, it is a word that describes or it modifies a verb, an adjective, or an adverb. So once again, an adverb, right? We can either say that it modifies a verb, or we can say it describes a verb or tells us more about the verb, right? So an adverb, it is a word that describes or modifies a verb, adjective, or adverb. So it tells us more about the verb, the adjective, as well as an adverb. And an adverb, right? It tells you how, it tells you when, it tells you where, to what extent, or even to what degree, right? All right. And when it comes to adverbs, right? When adverbs tell us how, right? And then it means that the adverbs that tell us how, they usually end in ly. So adverbs that tell us why, they usually end in ly, right? So an adverb that tells us how. Remember, we said adverbs say either tell you how, when, where, to what extent, or what degree. So some adverbs, right, that tell us how, they usually end in ly, which means that the word is going to end in ly, right? So, for example, it says, how well does she play the accordion? Right? So, that is almost like the question that is being asked. How well does one play the accordion? Or how did she play the accordion? Accordion, now I say, she played the accordion splendidly. So, the word splendidly, that is our adverb, splendidly. And then we have some of our adverbs that will tell us when, right? And some of our adverbs that tell us when, for example, when will he perform? That is now the question that's being asked. When will he perform? And then we can say, he will perform soon. So which means that soon is one of our, it's an adverb that basically tells us when, right? So soon. It's an adverb that tells us when. And then some of our adverbs that tell us where, right? They tell us where. For example, where did she go? So that is a question. Where did she go? And then our adverb can be she went downstairs. And downstairs can be our adverb that tells us where she went. And then we have some adverbs that tell us to what extent or to what degree, right? And a question can be, to what extent or what degree is he reasonable, right? And then we can say, he is not reasonable. And that is our adverb, right? So we say that an adverb, right, it's words that describes or modifies or tells us more about the verb, the adjective, as well as the adverb. And adverbs that tell us how, they tell us when, they tell us where, they tell us to what extent, or they can even tell us to what degree. And remember, most times, adverbs that tell us how, they end in ly. Splendidly, lovely, right? Adorably, but it ends in y, right? Then we're also going to find out about the difference between what a comparative adverb is as well as a superlative adverb is. All right, but but for now, let's go to aplusstudents.ca, and that is where we are going to be doing our tutorial lesson as well as our test. All right, so once it's an adverb, right? It is either a word that describes or modifies a verb, adverb, or an adjective, right? And it tells you how, when, where, to what extent, or to what degree. Then once again, we said some adverbs to tell us how they end in ly. For example, we use words like splendidly, lovely, right? Then we have adverbs that tell us when. It can even be not Saturday, it can be even soon, later, now, right? Those can be adverbs that tells us when. Adverbs that tells us where, right? Can be downstairs, upstairs, next door, next to, right? Doesn't have to be just you giving a specific place, right? And in adverbs that tells us to what extent or to what degree, we can just say not, for example, is an answer. It's an adverb, right? And if we look at the sentence here, it says Mr. Bennett, who once worked as a school janitor, proudly informed us that he had never taken a single sick day. So, Mr. Bennett, who once worked as a school janitor, proudly informed us that he had never taken a single sick day. And the words in bold or the words in yellow are basically the adverbs. Once, it's like, asking yourself when. Proudly tells us how. And then we have never. When did he take off? Oh, he had never taken off. So never is our adverb. Never, proudly, and once. Right? So once is an adverb that describes the verb worked. Proudly is an adverb that describes the verb informed. And then never is an adverb that describes the verb had taken. All right. So remember, whenever we identify words, right, we need to say what words it is being described. So if we try to identify the adverbs, we must at least say that, okay, this is what's being described, that is what is being described, right? And that will make it much more easier for you to identify the adverbs, right? Like we did with the words in yellow, right? Once describes worked. It describes the verb worked. Proudly describes the verb informed. And verb, right? And the verb phrase is had never taken. That is a verb phrase, right? All right. All right, if we look at these two words, it says, my dog Astro is completely loyal to me, but my cat generally ignores me. Right? So my dog Astro is completely loyal to me, but my cat generally ignores me. So we need to, in this case, our adverbs are completely, it's in yellow, and generally, right? And they describe completely loyal and generally ignores. And that is adverbs that tells us how. How is he loyal? How does he ignore you? Right? And then the last one it says, I am almost certain that I left my jacket outside on the porch. I am almost certain that I left my jacket outside on the porch. All right, and if we look at these two words, that is almost and outside, right? These two words, which are adverbs, right? If we look at the first word, almost is a word or it's an adverb, right? That describes the adjective which is certain. All right, and we can even say outside is an adverb that describes the verb left. So I left my jacket. Where did you leave it? I left it outside. Right? All right, let's go to our test. All right, so we're going to our test where we're going to select the adverbs. So we're going to select three adverbs, right? It says, my landlord, who is amazingly handy, just fixed my leaky faucet and promised to repair my stove tomorrow. All right, and if we choose the correct ones, right, it's either amazingly, it's either just or tomorrow, or it is the one that says just leaky tomorrow. All right, so we can say it is the first one that is my landlord, who is amazingly handy, just fixed my leaky faucet and promised to repair my stove, right? And we chose the correct one, which is the first option. We need to select two adverbs, right? It's either yesterday or so, or yesterday and to. The donuts that I purchased yesterday were too stale to eat, so I discarded them. All right, and if we choose the correct one, we can say the donuts that I purchased yesterday were too stale to eat, so I discarded them. We need to choose the first option or the second option. All right, I'm not sure if the word so is there. Ah, stew, right? So two. That one was a bit confusing, the two and the so, right? All right, let's go into the next one. I need to select two adverbs, right? Two adverbs. My dog Astro is completely loyal to me, but my cat generally ignores me. We need to select the adverbs. Is it completely and generally, which is option one, or is it completely and but, which is option two? Completely loyal, generally ignores, or is it completely loyal but mm. All right, and if we choose the correct one, we'll go with the first option, which is completely and generally. We now need to select the three adverbs. It says the TV station is forecasting severely cold weather. So Ali and I will stay inside today. So we need to choose the correct um, adverbs. Is it option one, which is severely Ali inside? All right. We see that the TV station is forecasting severely cold weather, so Ali and I will stay inside today. And if we choose the correct one, right, we chose the second one. We need to select the two adverbs, right? I am almost certain that I left my jacket outside on the porch. Two adverbs. Is it the first option, which is almost and outside, or the second option, which is almost and porch? So now we're going to have to choose the adverbs, right? Is it option one, almost and outside, or almost and porch? All right. And we chose the first one. All right, now we're going on to what a superlative as well as a comparative adjective is, or adverb is. An adverb. Ooh, that is what we're doing. Adverbs. And before we continue, we said adverbs, it describes or modifies a verb, an adjective, or another adverb, right? We have verbs. We have adverbs such as that tells us how, when, where, to what extent, and to what degree. All right. So when it comes to adverbs, right, and it comes to superlative adjectives as well as comparative adjectives. Comparative adjectives is when we compare the actions of either a person, a thing, or group to the action of another person, right? So, for example, it's like comparing myself to something that another person or thing is doing, right? So it's like one person or group that is doing the action, and we are being compared to another person or thing that is doing the group or that's doing the action, right? And then we have a superlative adverb, right? And a superlative adverb, it compares the action of a person, thing, or group to an action of a larger group, right? So it's like saying, we make an example. Um, let's say they are saying that, I'm just going to make up names, where we say Jade, right? This is now a superlative adjective where we say Jade is the smartest in the whole of the grade sevens, right? So that is where we're comparing Jade to the whole class, right? Instead of just one. Whereas a comparative, it will be like we would say that Jade is smarter than Amy, for example. Right? So we that is a comparative. You're just like comparing her to one person. But as soon as you compare somebody to a larger group, right? And then that is a superlative adverb, right? It's a superlative adverb. All right. And when it comes to our superlative adverbs, or not even superlative, when it comes to our adverbs, right? We said for adverbs with one syllables, right? So for adverbs with one syllable, say for example, we ask you, when are you going to the beach, right? And you say soon, or when are you going to do your homework? And it's soon, right? The response is soon. And then when we have an adverb that is with one syllable, like soon, and then we can say, um, we add an er to make it a comparative adverb. So when we are comparing, then we, for example, say, um, I'm not trying to make an example where we can say Jade um, ate her lunch sooner, way sooner than Alex, right? That is what we can maybe say. Or finished her assessment sooner than Alex, right? Or compared to the whole class, it was the soonest. So for comparative essay, a comparative adverb, we can just add an er to make it comparative and est to make it superlative. And if our base word ends with an e, we drop the e before we add er and est. So it's like just adding r or just adding st. All right. And if we now look at the way we can compare it, right? Our base word, comparative, as well as our superlative, right? We cannot say for our base word, if we, for example, use a one syllable word like soon, right? Then we, when we compare it to one person or thing, we can say sooner by adding the er. All right, so if we compare it to one person only, and then we can say sooner, but as soon as we compare it to more than one person, we say soonest. And we do the same with close, right? Compared to one person, we say it's closer than Lisa's. Or if it's compared to the rest of the group, we can say Lisa's is the closest. All right. So when we use our superlative as well as comparative adjectives ends in er, whereas superlative adjectives ends in est. All right. The others is basically when we are comparing, like, let's say more than one syllable, right? And then we use those specific words. All right, here it says, of Jupiter's six or more moons, Metis orbits. So orbit the closest to the surface of the planet. The closest. So when we say closest, then it means that, right? Yeah, if our answer is going to be closest, then it means that this is a superlative adverb. All right. And if we go to our test, where we are going to say if we're going to choose the comparative as well as the superlative. All right, so we can say the man running the antiques auction do we say talks even fast than rose dust or faster than rose dust? All right, so they're saying the man running the antiques auction talks even than Ross, which means that we are comparing it to one person, right? Remember, when we are comparing ourselves on literally anything that we're doing to another person, only one person, then we say that is comparative adverb. But as soon as we are comparing ourselves to more than one person, then it is not an adverb, right? All right, so we can say the men, they are faster. All right, and faster is correct. Lamont seems to think the of my friends. Do we say he used to think most scientifically of all my friends, or specifically about my friends scientifically? All right, so it says Lamont seems to think. Do we say scientifically of all my friends, or most scientifically? All right, so we can say Lamont seems to think. Oh, more scientifically, because we're comparing Lamont to all of the friends, right? So it's actually more scientifically because you're comparing Lamont to all of the friends that is thinking scientifically. Now that I have crutches, I can move around, do we say independently than I could before, or more independently? All right, so we can say now that I have crutches, right? I can move around, do we say independently than I could before, or more independently than I could before? All right. And we can say that is more independently. So I already do things independently. So that is more independently. All right, so this is now the end of our lesson on adverbs, right? We said adverbs is words that either describes, modifies, or tells us more about the verb, the adjective, or the adverb, right? And we have adverbs that tell us how, when, where, to what extent, and to what degree. All right, and then we had superlative as well as comparative adverbs, right? And in our next lesson, we will complete the rest of the lessons. But for now, have a good evening further. Goodbye.